Greetings. Thank you for viewing my Spark Talk. Operationalizing racial equity, peak grantmaking is creating communities of belonging. My name is Rafael Torres, and I serve as peer group specialist for peak grantmaking. Peak is a philanthropic serving organization of over 6,600 members, including 533 contributing organizational members. Our mission is to transform philanthropy by elevating the field of grants management and empowering grants professionals to lead in operationalizing equity-centered, values-driven grant making. Peak offers a variety of programs, resources, publications, events, and Connect, which is an online forum of over 7,000 grant-making professionals to share questions, opportunities, and ideas. We also offer space for member-driven groups like region-based chapters, and the focus of my talk today, peer groups, which are personal or professional identity-based spaces. First, I'll share an overview on how our peer groups formed. In 2020, the pandemic was in full force, and uprisings for racial justice were taking place across the country. In this climate of uncertainty, Peak's members rallied to support one another and asked us to explore developing race and race equity affinity groups. In July 2020, Peak issued a call for volunteers to help us craft a strategy for these efforts, and 44 volunteers joined us to co-create an initial plan. Our members asked for spaces that could meet their varied needs, such as spaces to convene around shared identities, one's professional placement in the field of philanthropy, and spaces to convene around co-developing practical steps forward on the journey to more equitable grant-making practices. Over the span of a year, Peak worked with members to develop and create new peer groups that formally launched during our virtual annual conference in July 2021. This initiative required being okay with the evolving space of creation and giving ourselves the time, grace, and space to figure it all out together without pressure to adhere to specific benchmarks, agendas, or timelines. Late in 2022, Peak invested in more dedicated support of the peer groups by creating a new peer group specialist role, which is me, to provide logistical, convening, and organizational support to groups. Now, as of 2023, Peak's 13 peer groups completed its 2-year pilot phase and have proven to be successful community-led spaces that move beyond one-off webinars and linear learning models. Peak's peer groups offer philanthropy professionals the opportunity to intentionally, meaningfully, and consistently connect within the philanthropic sector, and Peak's network to build transformational relationships to advance their careers and drive change in philanthropy. Peak's peer groups are characterized into 4 themed focus groups. First, with the affinity groups, are spaces for networking and peer learning based on professional identity. Next, communities of practice. They focus on organization-based peer learning and resource sharing and development. Working groups. These are informal forums created and led by Peak members to explore specifically defined topics on grant-making practices. And last, caucuses. Peak's 4 caucuses formally launched in the summer of 2021 during our annual convening, and they are the Accountability and Action for Allies Caucus, the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Caucus, also known as AA-NHPI, the Black Caucus, and the Latinx Caucus. Peak's caucuses are unique spaces for professionals that demonstrate a need for a safe space to meet and collaborate with peers of shared cultural identities. The main overarching theme for these groups is diversity and inclusion, especially for underrepresented groups who don't often feel like they belong in the field of philanthropy. Now, I'll describe how these groups work. First, it should be noted, depending on the peer group event theme and outcome, programs are tied to either one or more of Peak's 5 principles listed here as an image. All groups are led by 2 to 4 volunteer member co-chairs. They organize and plan meetings or events, and co-chairs also take part in event communications and outreach. Events can be virtual or in person and occur a minimum of twice a year, either for professional development, networking, or self-care. We also offer space for all groups to meet in person at our annual conference. A budget is available to pay for speaker fees and catering to cover in-person meetings. The main peak liaison and support for co-chairs is me, the peer group specialist. Here is a sample list of recent meetings planned and implemented by Peak Caucus co-chairs. As you can see, most meetings revolve around personal development, wellness, and connecting with peers. After 2 years, Peak has found success in providing these spaces of belonging for grant-making professionals, especially those who are underrepresented in the philanthropic sector. The following slides will show a few quotes from members on their experience with the caucus and what it means for them. Here, we have Edbert Bozil, who is a co-chair with the Black Caucus. She values a platform where Black people can show up and be themselves. Here, we have Irene Shanzawang, co-chair of the AANHPI caucus. She values how she and her co-chair peers were able to lean on Peak, other peer groups, and members to identify what the caucus could do, such as changing their name to be more inclusive. Rachel Gonzalez is co-chair of the Latinx caucus. She shares that the caucus has provided a needed sense of belonging and knowledge that they're in a safe space of shared understanding. What's next for our peer groups? First, getting the word out about our existing groups. These spaces have grown since their inception 2 years ago and can be a valuable resource for new and BIPOC professionals. It should be noted that individual membership is free for professionals in the philanthropic sector. We are currently exploring new pilot groups for underrepresented professionals in philanthropy. Stay tuned for future announcements. And we're formalizing a standard of practice to forming new groups. Implementing a procedural policy will enable Peak to have a transparent process as we consider staff capacity supporting new member suggestions. Our peer group space have largely been member-driven and will remain so as we support member needs and fostering connections to drive change in philanthropy. If you would like to stay connected and learn more about Peak, please visit our website at peakgrantmaking.org. Also listed is a direct link to our peer groups page where you can sign up for our groups. If you'd like to learn more about my bio or contact me, please scan my virtual business card or email me at raphael@peakgrantmaking.org. And this concludes my talk on Peak peer groups, and I hope it sparks some potential ideas for your own organization in providing a sense of belonging for underrepresented communities in philanthropy. Thank you y gracias.